I know. Haven't done an episode in a while. Just it's summertime. Call it my summer hiatus. I'm on a like a cliffhanger break through the seasons. Call it that. But whoever's listening better enjoy this one. We are in a full-on heat wave. It's not the full-on heat death of the universe. It just feels like it. But I've had to turn off every fan, every AC, all this in my little tiny apartment. So I'm really sweating in this one. So enjoy it. But I'm still Kirk. This is still Dumb Test Late. Let's get it started. Now time for some interactive fun. So we are back in our multi-story that's going on at the same time. The last idea I started was the combination of, I took an idea I wanted to do, my hard-boiled detective story, The Cursed Detective. And I combined that with two other stories going on at the same time. One story being told from two different perspectives. One from a writer, that's the writer and creator of The Cursed Detective, and kind of this fantasy role-playing group that takes the story too far and basically holds the writer hostage symbolically, kind of Misery style, but not physically. They do stuff to him because you find out in this that they've taken the fandom too far of The Cursed Detective, because the writer character has been doing it for so long. They've built this whole role-playing fantasy, and they find out that the writer is basically canceling that series. I haven't decided canceling the series or basically selling it off. So it becomes like a commercial. It gets sold off to like a big corporation, like whatever the fictional evil corporation, the Disney, the Marvel, the Fox, the whatever. And they're so upset by that. And they want their indie writer back. They're one they feel they have the ownership over, that, they supported when they were just starting out, the writer, that they basically do all these crazy things to inspire the writer to keep writing the story or create a new story. And it's basically like holding them hostage. They get more and more violent, more and more creepy, because they've lost touch with their reality from, being too far into this fandom. And that does hop into like the news story. I want to like flesh that out more. And the big idea that I'm trying to build off of is stories in threes. So in this universe, the writer is going to have their story going on at the same time as the fandom, the pages. That's what they're called, pages of the Pentacle. It's going to be going on the same time because they kind of, I don't want to say they never meet, but they interact with each other at separate times. Like they'll do something and leave a message from the writer, and the writer really doesn't know who this is. He has an inclination, but nobody will really believe him, and he has to deal with it on his own. And then you have the story of the Cursed Detective. There's going to be, not a full-on story, but there's going to be references to it to basically like bind or basically symbolize or be metaphors between both of the stories that are going on, because they're similar. They're similar themes, but they're told from different perspectives. So you see a similar theme told, the different lives that are going on, how they interact with each other. Like this one I'm doing an episode on, the theme is like anxiety, because I wanted to create a scene, a story where there's anxiety for an upcoming decision or upcoming meeting or something that's been pushed off for so long that has to be done, that each of these characters, the writer, the Pages group, and the Cursed Detective, all have to do. And you see the buildup of their anxiety, of them struggling to get to this that, they know it's coming up, but they're struggling to have to do it. In the writer's case, the scene I'm setting is he's going to be getting ready for like a convention. So every year he does this con or convention where he does a fandom convention where he does a story writers panel, because he's this indie artist, indie writer and creator that's been doing this Cursed Detective series for so long. He's done so much of it, but it's never hit mainstream, and that's kind of the struggle why he wants to let it go and get a more mainstream writing job. He doesn't feel like he's up there with the big writers or the big creators. He feels like he gets passed by. He knows he has these small fandoms that support him very dearly, but he wants, he's that fear of, being a small writer, and this is all he's, ever known for. He wants to do more. And then for this convention, also the Pages group, the fandom group, they go to it every year because this is their favorite writer. And this is where the writer kind of, in between like a break of the story, he drops teasers or hints of what the next story is going to be, what the next villain, what the next twist and stuff like that. And you see the same scene with the writer kind of worrying about that this next convention is where he's going to drop the bomb and drop the announcement that he's ending the Cursed Detective story. He won't be writing for it. He won't be continuing it. He's going to kill his darling to do something else. He's going to make that big creator leap. But the Pages group don't. And you see that the writer is struggling with that. He knows it's what he needs to do to grow as a writer, but it's so fearful to jump into the unknown and to jump into something else and try to be maybe another genre or write, movies or something like that, to get taken seriously in another, fiction realm. He has the fear of that because he's never made like big money. He's, constantly creating this character and these universe stories, but he's never made that big jump into popularity. But he knows he has to do this. He knows there'll be repercussions for it. He knows all that stuff, but he feels like, not that it's time, but it's something he has to do. And you see him battling with that anxiety of that. And then you see the same scene, but in the opposite direction of the Pages group. They're basically getting ready to go to the panel, the fandom convention, to the writers panel that they know the writer's going to be on, because they know every year he does this. He's part of this, writers and creators panel where he gives out hints. He'll maybe use like this vintage tarot card deck to symbolize, a hint that, only the really devoted fans will know what's the next villain. If it's an older villain coming back, if it's a side character or something like that, what's going to happen in a Cursed Detective story. And you see them kind of discussing in the anxiety of them in the back of their mind. They know this character in this universe has been going on for so long, but they love it so much they wouldn't accept that it's ending. So they just jump straight to them building what the next thing is going to be for this universe. Because, in their heads, it has to keep going. They're so deep into this whole fandom universe. It's all part of their reality and their personality. They would never think of it ending. And that's the conflict with the writer. He knows he has those fandoms and that it will basically destroy them. He'll be, he'll become the villain of their reality. And all that is kind of combined in a story that will be shown through the Cursed Detective. It'll be like an older story. We show the anxiety of them having to meet, like, to refresh, the Cursed Detective is like a hard-boiled detective, but he has this vision of things to come in the future, but it's always cursed, of a vision of himself, something to happen, but it's always the bad outcome. He doesn't have good visions. He has visions, but they're the visions of, bad things are going to happen to them or not go his way. That's his curse that he sees. He has that seventh son vision and sight, because there's, supernatural elements to this, and it's not just a regular detective novel. There's that supernatural element that he can see glimpses in the future, but it's always cursed. And so I wanted to talk more about that scene from that Cursed Detective story. It's going to tie in these two kind of vice versa stories. I don't know, versatile or different stories from the writer and the Pages fandom group perspective. Okay, so going into the Cursed Detective story itself, it's going to be referenced a lot. Like I said, this is what the writer is working on, majority of his professional life as a creator and a writer. This is what the fandom group have dedicated their lives to being fans of. So I wanted to give more details about that. So this is what I have about the Cursed Detective story, and more about the characters in the background and how that story is going to go. Also, a theme that I'm working on for this is called It Happens in Threes. Three is going to be a big number with this. Because there's a, background of occult and supernatural and, 3 different stories essentially going on at the same time that will always be referenced. Okay. So the Cursed Detective name is going to either be Aska, ASCA, or Era, ERA Strickland. Aska Strickland or Era Strickland, their name. I mean, I'm going to refer to them as the Cursed Detective, or Detective Strickland or something like that. I got the name from, I'm not, okay. I'm just going to say this. I do believe in omens and all that stuff and getting visited by different, let's say, creatures and entities sometimes, or if you get visited by a certain animal, it's an omen that means something. So there was something that I'm not crazy. Okay, but I'm just going to say this. I was asking the universe a question, and then I had an omen visit from a black moth. Actually, a few that kind of answered my question. I won't go into that, but that's kind of the background of why I came up with the name for Aska or Era Strickland. It's kind of based on the scientific name of that black moth. Also, it's the built-in joke of, because I do like having serious and more mysterious stories, but underlying jokes in there. Like Aska Strickland, the Cursed Detective, is going to have, a sense of humor about him. Kind of like, Constantine. If you ever read that, the movie, of course, with Keanu Reeves, but also the comic series, there is a level of comedy from Constantine. It's for the implemented joke whenever someone is saying his name, where he says his name is Aska Strickland. They reply with Aska who, that built-in joke, and is like supernatural is a cult name. Is Aska the Ill Seeker. Because, like I said, there's going to be an occult supernatural background, and he was the 7th son. And of course, according to, I don't know what belief that would fall under, if it's Wicca or whatever, more older, kind of supernatural belief system. But if it's like, if you're the 7th son, you're born with the power of sight. Like I said, he's the Cursed Detective. He has the power of the sight, but it's cursed in a way where he don't only see bad things going to happen. He sees bad omens that are going to happen to them. That's why his name Aska, the Ill Seeker. This is what I'm thinking of the background for his story. I don't know how much I'll go into it, but it's going to come up in the story. Okay, he started out as a normal rank beat cop who started to have these visions that helped him quickly move up the ranks to detective. But the quick power got to him, and they became cursed visions. Like, he used his power of vision to basically become corrupt, and it got to him, and that's what took him down. This initially drove him mad and got him labeled as in the mystery and action movie trope, the loose cannon. And he is kicked off the force in disgrace, but starts his own private eye business. Like I said, he's the hard-boiled detective agency, and he learns that the visions are cursed omens. So he starts to use that in his benefit. He can't change that. He can't change the visions. He sees the bad omens that are going to happen, but he uses that to basically be this, private eye, this private detective. Okay, that's his backstory. Jumping ahead in the story. So hang on, I'm jumping too far ahead. He was kicked out the force, yes. And he was okay. So hang on. Okay, sorry. Even my own notes were confusing me. So I jumped ahead too far. I'm still talking about the background of Aska Strickland, the Cursed Detective. He uses what is called the 4th Pentacle of Jupiter, which is his talisman for the visions. He was the 7th son in family, but abandoned, so his power of sight became cursed. He was given essentially what was called the bastard's view. He became so broken and jaded at this point that he had a sense of humor about the curse that he sometimes uses to joke aloud with a invisible deity that he imagines has a curse on him. I think I used that in the scene with the bees from the last episode. When the Cursed Detective's visions become too strong or powerful for him, he feels he is losing sense of control of them. He snaps his fingers and asks himself, "Where are you?" And he replies, "Here." When he says here, he's looking at a small tattoo on his wrist that says "Here" in plain black ink. That's like kind of his. If you ever seen that movie with all the dreams, The Kick, basically, or the spinning top that kind of holds you into reality. He has a small tattoo in his arm that says "here," and when the visions are too strong for him, he snaps and asks himself, "Where are you?" And he replies, "Here." That kind of brings him back to reality. So the thing I was jumping for, the story, the specific Curse Detective story that I was talking about, like I said, it happens in threes. The anxiety story that binds the story of the writer and the Pages fandom. It's going to be about, basically, he has these visions but he has a dream where he meets the devil, or the interpretation of the devil. And this kind of goes way back. I did an episode a while ago about me interpreting I had a few dreams actually about having a meeting with the devil, and I wanted to turn that into a story. It was like I was on a street in the neighborhood I grew up on, but that was like the entrance to the underworld where I wasn't supposed to be, and I ended up meeting the devil. So that's go back and find that old episode. I think it was season 1. That's going to be kind of used in this Curse Detective story, where that's the omen he saw. He knows his next meeting is going to be with the devil. But then it turns around. He meets with kind of the leader of the antagonist in the occult story that he's always going against. Like I said, it's this long running Curse Detective story. This is kind of the origin where he meets his long running villains. Yes, it will end up that I'm not stealing. I'm borrowing a lot of themes from Batman and Joker. The whole thing with Batman and Joker, where Joker never wants to beat Batman because he kind of has this thing where Joker is evil, but he says he needs Batman and Batman needs Joker. It's this whole metaphysical thing between good and evil. They keep each other going, and Joker knows that and Batman knows that. They have a balance, even though they're on two sides of the law. It's going to kind of be this thing with the Curse Detective and this occult leader in the story, but I'll talk about more because I'm going to talk about certain scenes. Okay, so that's my next in the notes anyway. Okay, the antagonist group, they're going to be called the Fourth House of Mars or the Hands of the Pentacle, because like this story, the overall story is called Pages of the Pentacle. Pentacles and the whole occult symbolism and talisman and all that stuff is going to be kind of a theme in the supernatural sense of this, Curse Detective story and the story with the writer and the Pages fandom group. Okay. The first thing comes with the fourth Pentacle of Mars, which is a talisman for victory. They kind of use this talisman as their symbolism for they want to have victory in their evil plans. They're an evil occult. Okay. Sunis, Sunesis, is the name of the main antagonist and the leader of the evil cult in the Curse Detective story. His main theme is that he wants to show the whole world that everyone here is a devil. He has a thing that says we're all devils down here if they're put in the wrong situation. Like, I'm stealing from the Joker again, but in The Dark Knight, that whole thing with Joker wanted to, he had the two boats with people, and they had like a bomb trigger for each boat, and one was filled with regular civilians, the other was filled with like prisoners, and he was like, given the chance, everyone's going to choose be selfish and be evil. It's kind of like that thing. He has this theory that I'm not going to say it's my theory about reality, but sometimes I think about what reality is, and this character is kind of going to be based off that he says that reality, everyone is a devil down here. They're just hiding it. The ones who act normal and act nice are hiding it. And he wants to prove that. So he does all these evil things to make very powerful, very rich, very famous people show their dark side, their devil side. Like you said, they're just pretending not to be. Especially like with famous people and politicians and all that. He wants to show that they're all just devils like him, because he's labeled the leader of this evil cult. But he's like, people who label me that are way more evil than me. I'm just going to show the world that. And in their meeting, so like I said, the scene is about anxiety, and Aska, the Curse Detective, Aska Strickland has this vision where he's going to meet the devil, and it's going to be kind of a setup for a scene where he actually does meet Sunis, the leader of this antagonist occult group, the Hands of the Pentacle. Let's go with that. And yes, I may be borrowing from that scene in Heat, when Pacino and De Niro meet at that diner, when he says, "Let me buy you a cup of coffee." It's kind of going to be like that, but it's going to be in a burnt out diner. So the vision that Asuka had of meeting the devil, he meets the devil of his story in this burnt out diner. And Sunis, in the meeting with Asuka, asks him, "How do you create a devil?" His response is, "You take a mortal and you make him your god." So he's like giving, his big villain speech of why he's doing this. And it's kind of that showing that balance of, I'm doing this to show this evil thing and you are doing this to try to stop me, but we have a balance. Okay, his group takes people and turns them evil by putting them in these. Okay, this is going to be part of the supernatural thing in the Cursed Detective story. They put people in these pods underground, and basically from somehow, okay, like I said, it's going to be supernatural, it's going to be occult, and it basically strips away their inhibitions or something like that to basically show them as they show their evil side. They can no longer hide it. Like politicians can't lie, people can't hold back, they can't put this mask on. They basically are their true evil selves. That's what this evil group is doing, and they do it a lot with very popular and favorable people because they believe those are the biggest devils. And I got that from, there was this random podcast I was listening to, like a medical mystery podcast, where they talked about this guy he was like an older gentleman. He smoked his whole life, but then he kept having this issue and the doctors couldn't figure out. He kept doing all these surgeries. And then they did this thing where they put the camera in his throat and with the tube, and they went all the way down to his lungs. And they realized that when he was a kid, he swallowed a little plastic toy cone from like a model train set. And it had been stuck in his lungs since he was little. And over time, he couldn't like cough it up or anything. It was stuck. And over time, since it was a foreign object, his body basically grew scar tissue around it. That's how the body treats like a foreign object. It grew scar tissue around it because it was an intruder. It's a foreign object. That's what the body does. So in this story, that's when the occult group put people in the ground in these pods. The earth thinks of it as a foreign object. It sees it as a devil, and it strips away those inhibitions and makes so when they take them back out of the pods, they're their true evil self, and they can expose them to the world. That's kind of what happens in the Cursed Detective story. So this is part of the other creative story I have. Yeah, like I said, I want to do another story. Like I'm big on doing stories with these overall themes that. And I'm going to do it in threes too. It happened in threes. That the theme is going to be we're all devils down here, and it kind of shows that reality here is just what we considered hell. We're all devils. It's kind of based off of the in the Bible verse Luke 10:18. He said to them, "I watched Satan fall from heaven like a flash of lightning." So that's an actual verse, and that's Jesus saying that verse. And it's kind of interpreted as Jesus replying to the disciples after they come back from like missions that you did so well. I saw you, pray so or save so many people that I saw Satan fall. But the way I see it is that is an omen, because that's kind of the only line. There's no follow up to that. It just says, "I watched Satan fall from heaven like a flash of lightning." And I take it as Satan fell to earth. Like I said, we're all fallen devils here trying to either hide that we're devil. I don't actually believe this. This is like my interpretation going into creativity, that we're all devils down here trying to prove that we're not, or trying to fix that we're not. And we're trying to leave. Okay. So that's what's going to be the base for this story. That's what this evil antagonist Sunis believes, and that's kind of his reasoning behind doing these evil things in his constant battle with the Cursed Detective. Okay. Yeah, like I said, their meeting is the part the part of the threes scene that I created in the Birdtown restaurant, similar to the dream I had about meeting the devil. Yes. It's going to, like I said, the scene of under the theme of anxiety between the writer, the Pages Fandom group, and this is the scene of the cursed detective that kind of combines them all, or kind of shows the theme of that all. That's how I see that going. Now, for another character, the dame, because in the hard-boiled cursed detective story, you always have to have the dame that walks in. I think early on I did, when I was first writing this, the first scene I wrote about was like the dame walking in, the cursed detective seeing her, and him, of course, falling in love with her because he knew he would, but he knew she would be soon gone because he can see the bad omens that are going to happen to him. Okay. So for her, because she's going to be part of this anxiety story, the cursed detective Aska meeting this devil. Her husband is someone famous, like an old Hollywood actor or a politician that gets targeted and kidnapped by the antagonist group, the Hands of the Pentacle. Our cursed detective's former police force discover him, the dame's husband, who's been kidnapped, for what seems to be some kind of kidnap or ransom crime, and return him. It becomes a huge news story, but Aska sees something isn't right and feels like the forces finding him seems too easy, as he has previous inside information on this cult. He learns what this cult is doing and the reason they're doing it. But since Aska Strickland is this basically kicked out, it's now that he's working on his own as private detective. He's a disgraced old detective, so nobody will really believe him. He knows that, so he can't really go to the press or make a big deal about it. Nobody from his old force will believe him. He's on his own, but he knows something isn't right. And again, yes, I'm taking from the Batman, the Joker. This is mostly from Arkham Asylum in the beginning, where the Joker gets kidnapped and taken into Arkham Asylum, and Batman said, "This seems too easy." And of course, it was a trap. Joker takes over Arkham Asylum. Great game that follows. The dame, she finds Aska Strickland, our cursed detective. She hires him since she's starting to get the feeling that something is wrong with her husband that's been returned. Like, say he's this big, famous Hollywood actor that had this great, cowboy persona, and he has all these great movies, and people call him a hero and all this stuff. But according to Sunis in the Hands of the Pentacle, everyone is a devil. And they did something to him to expose him, to basically show his dark side, his devil side. And his wife is starting to realize that she's at first she's happy to have him back because he was found by the police force, but she realizes something isn't wrong. Something is wrong. Something isn't right with him. He's changed. Aska Strickland, our cursed detective, he takes on the case as he has visions that led him to believe her, but this puts a target on his back as the antagonist group is always watching what is going on. This leads to him meeting with Sinise and explains everything to him in the burnt out diner, similar to seeing in the movie Heat. I already said that. Also, I wanted to use, going back to Batman again, like I said, Aska, our cursed detective, knows this meeting with Sinise is him meeting with the devil. So I wanted to use kind of the line from Batman, the Tim Burton one. Was it 89? Actually, I have to go back and find this again. When Joker is meeting Vicky Vale and Bruce Wayne is there, and he has the "You ever dance with the devil in the pale moonlight?" But in this version, Sinise will say to Aska the cursed detective, "You ever dance with the devil at the end of a burning light?" Because they're in a burnt out diner. Sinise kind of knows that Aska had this vision of him meeting the devil. Sinise is kind of flattered. He's like, "I know I am, but I'm going to show everyone else." So he's like he said, "Have you ever danced with the devil at the end of a burning light?" That's kind of his big speech that I'm copying from Heat as they're meeting in the diner. Also, they're trying to remake Heat. Come on, what's up with that? That movie is amazing. Okay, so that's the big scene from this story, and I want to kind of write the contrasting scenes from the writer's perspective of his anxiety coming up to the announcement of the comic panel the writers creative panel at the Fandom Con, and his fandom group that are going to be there expecting, the big announcement for a new character or a new storyline or what's going to happen, not knowing that he's basically ending their favorite story and they're killing their fandom. So this is the scene I wrote, because another thing I want to do, get into atomic habits of basically write these scenes out every day. This is what I have so far. Okay, this is my scene. It's also part of that thing I want to do called stuck scenes. Okay, here we go. From the left side of a busily distracted writer's open studio apartment window, a click-clack echoed far enough from a distance away. Not far enough to awake the distracted senses, but enough to be a new diversion for our current writer's preoccupied disposition. This new distraction was just the newest of many, holding his fingers frozen in front of an expectant keyboard for the words that kept tapping and shuffling back and forth in his hesitant mind. At least this one was now loud enough from the passing Express L train as it shocked the cracked open window of his efficient studio apartment enough to disengage its stare at another blank screen. Before the words flowed so effortlessly from what he could recall from his selective memory. That's the scene I have so far. It's kind of setting up his anxiety, him being frozen of how does he write his announcement that he's ending this story. How does he get over that? And I'm going to kind of contrast it with the scene that train that passes by his little crappy studio New York apartment, which he lives in and writes in. The fandom group, the Pages of the Pentacle, are going to be on that train, and they're going to be discussing, because the convention is coming up soon, of, he's done this before and he's done that, and what's the secret hint from the last story and all this stuff. They're going to be going over that, and somebody on the train, there's always a buzzkill that's going to kind of see them as nerds and yell out or something and kind of ruin it, and kind of be the not Chekhov's gun, but kind of the symbolism that whatever they say to them puts that seed of doubt in their mind that this can be a bad announcement. So their anxiety starts with that, and they're going to start to panic about that. And that's going to be the scene in threes about anxiety of the cursed detective, the writer, the Pages group. So that's where I am at so far. I really like the story. I'm hopping into it. I'm sorry I haven't been doing it so much. There's too much going on in the world. But that's why we write. That's why we create. Not as a distraction, but you have to create. You have to write. You have to find beauty. You have to do things in the dark times. Because if Picasso could paint when Nazis were knocking at his door, I can write in the heat wave. So, thanks for listening. I'm still Kirk. This is still Dumb Tessellate. I hope you're being good. Hope you're being good to yourself, good to others. Love one another. Love thy neighbor. Be nice to each other. Forgive each other. Listen to each other. Hopefully you'll hear from me sooner in the next one. We'll figure out the next story in threes. So thanks for listening. Bye-bye.